this morning, we are learning about what went on behind the scenes of the House Select Committee that investigated the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Timothy Hayfie, the former lead investigator for the committee, is now speaking out, and he joins us now. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. I guess, first of all, give us your thoughts on how you felt when these different revelations emerged.
The revelations about Mike Pence, completely predictable that the special counsel would want to speak to him. I think that Jack Smith and his team are understandably trying to get information from every possible source before they make the momentous decision about a possible indictment of a former president. Mike Pence, obviously, arguably witness one, right at the center of this, would have very direct information, and understandably, he's stepping to Mike Pence, to the president's children. He's going to turn over every rock, or at least try to, before a final decision is made.
We had a guest on a couple of weeks ago who said, just dismiss the entire January 6th committee. Just, oh, that was just political. What do you say to people who say such a thing?
Yeah, it was an attack on the United States Capitol, not a politically motivated investigation. It was a bipartisan investigation, very unusual on Capitol Hill. We had Republican members. We didn't have a majority and a minority. And all of our witnesses, literally every person who had material information, was someone who was in the Trump administration, in the Trump campaign, the Trump family.
Can you just underline that again for me? Just stop again right there, because in most of these committees that we see, you'll have Democrats bring on liberals, you have Republicans bring on conservatives, and they've been fighting these ideological wars for years. So you're just sitting there going, okay, I know what that person's going to say. I know what that person's going to say. I want you to underline again the fact that every single person that delivered damning testimony on what Donald Trump did January the 6th was a Trumper, defended him through 2 impeachments, defended him through the horrific things he said over 4 years, defended him over caged children, defended him time and time again. And yet, on January the 6th, they woke up and all of these people that you called, they were all Trumpers.
Exactly. Look, the folks in the room where it happened were all very close to the former president. And it's ironic to me that people call this a politically motivated investigation when our star witnesses were Bill Barr and Pat Cipollone and Jared and Ivanka. You know, again, these are people not with a bias to try to hurt the former president, but people who were on his team who sincerely wanted him to win, but acknowledged that he didn't and did the right thing when it counted.
Timothy, good morning. One of the arguments Trump supporters have made is that this January 6th was spontaneous, that there was a protest, a rally at the Ellipse, and that it got out of hand. But one of the things, the headlines that came out of the January 6th Select Committee and all the research and investigation you did was the premeditation, was the intent, which gets at the heart of what the special counsel will have to prove. Is there any doubt in your mind that former President Trump had intent to commit these crimes that you've recommended now to the DOJ, these charges?
Willie, no, not at all. That's really the basis of the criminal referral, the evidence of specific intent to disrupt the joint session. The statute says obstruct, interfere, or influence an official proceeding. And we developed ample evidence that the president and others had such specific intent. The day of January 6th was really the last desperate part of a multi-part plan to prevent the transfer of power. And all the way through, from pressure on the Justice Department to pressure on state legislatures to pressure on Mike Pence to launching a mob at the Capitol during the joint session, informs the intent to prevent the transfer of power. So no, absolutely no doubt we wouldn't have made a criminal referral had there been any question about that intent issue.
One of the other desperate arguments we've heard is that the media or you on the committee have somehow blown January 6th out of proportion, that really at the end of the day it was a few people who broke into the Capitol. Meanwhile, we've seen video of people beating cops with American flags, smashing their heads into revolving doors, calling for the hanging of Mike Pence, seeking out Nancy Pelosi. The list goes on and on and on. What surprised you most, because you saw so much evidence, you talked to so many witnesses, at the end of the day, were you stunned by how close we came to really even a more terrible day than it already was?
Yes, to be frank, absolutely. Look, I grew up believing that democracy is durable, that our institutions hold. And we came close here to that not being accurate, right? Democracy has to be earned repeatedly. It requires good people doing the right thing. Thankfully, that happened here, but it was tenuous. And I didn't fully appreciate how tenuous and how close this plan came to success until I was immersed for 18 months in what happened before and on January 6th.
Timothy, Sam Stein here. I have a two-part question. Would love if you answered both of them. One is, did you ever have a reasonable hope that Donald Trump would appear before your committee? And then the second one is, had he not defied the subpoena, and had he sat down and not pled the fifth to every question you asked, what's the one question, above all else, that you would have asked him?
Always hoped that he would come in and thought that there's a fair amount of hubris with the former president and that he may think that he could answer questions and continue to spin some of the things that he had said publicly about January 6th. So while we knew going in it was unlikely, never know exactly with him, and we were prepared to ask him questions. The two things that we would want to know, first and foremost, were acknowledgement of loss of the election, try to get into his understanding of the lack of evidence of election fraud, and then real time, what he was doing, what he was thinking, what he was not doing on January 6th. We wanted to hear his account of that day. We had a lot of evidence that he was encouraged to take more aggressive action to disperse the violence, that he refused or was resistant to that. So we would have spent a lot of time on his awareness of the election loss and a lot of time about what happened during the day on January 6th.
All right, former lead investigator for January 6th Select Committee, Timothy Heaphy, thank you very much for coming on this morning. We appreciate it. And